Thank you for listening to the Living Zen-podcast. If you've been listening for a while and are wondering how you can take the next step in developing your own Zen practice, or how you can more formally connect with our community, please explore our online Orientation to Zen practice, which you can find on our website at zenwest.ca. If you enjoy the resources that we make available online, we would very much appreciate your support. There are a number of ways that you can help us continue to do the work we do. One of the best ways is by becoming a part of our community as an associate. Your commitment of $10 a month will ensure that offerings like the Living Zen-podcast, eZendo, and our online Orientation to Zen will continue to be available around the world to everyone with an interest in truly living Zen. To become an associate, please visit our website at zenwest.ca and click on Become an Associate. Many more Zen Talks are available for purchase on iTunes and at Amazon.com. Just search for Venerable Eshu Martin. These talks are also made available for free on our website for all of our members and associates. You may also want to download the Living Zen Podcast app, which makes downloading and listening to the podcast effortless. Thank you for your support, and thank you for listening to Living Zen. Welcome, everybody. Tonight, I'm going to be kind of a little bit more relaxed. I'm going to try to be a little bit more relaxed than I might normally be during a ceremony like this, because it's the first one that we've ever done. And so even the monks are kind of going, we don't really know what's going on. So I'm going to take some time and explain things. This ceremony for us started in September with a special Tuesday night where many people came and spoke about losses that they had experienced. For myself, September's a difficult month because when I was 9 years old, that was when my own mother died. So it's always a difficult time. Paying honor or remembering confronting death is something that we don't do so much in our culture. The basic form for the ceremony that we're going to be doing tonight, that we've already started tonight, comes from something out of the tradition that I was trained in called obon, which is usually done in August in Japan. In the West, we used to have ceremonies like this. We used to have days where we would think about our ancestors, think about the people that we've lost. And so I thought it was really a great idea to hold this ceremony tonight, so close to Halloween, All's Hallowed Eve, or Samhain, right? Right, Elizabeth? Elizabeth? Samhain? Samhain, yeah, okay. So, in both the Buddhist tradition and in our own, this is a time of year where the world of the living and the world of the dead are very close together. Death is something that we avoid in our culture. I've spoken about this many times. We do all that we can to avoid thinking about death or talking about death or remembering people who have died in a public way. It scares us. Death is the one thing that everybody, regardless of whether I know you or not, we share in this room. No person in this room will get out of this alive. And that's something that scares us. Everyone's getting really sort of stiff. So I want you have permission to sort of move if you're uncomfortable, because I have really no idea how long it's going to take me to say all the things that I want to say. So please feel comfortable. The Buddha said of death that of all the footprints in the world, that of the elephant is king. And of all meditations, that on death is king. If we are ever feeling like we're getting carried away or taken adrift by things that are superfluous, just reflecting on the nature of our own mortality is often enough to bring us back down to ground. Zen practice is something that isn't always easy. Tonight, I want to talk just a little bit about the ceremony that we're doing. And I want you all to sort of have a look at the Butsudan, because I think sometimes people feel like they've just got to look at the floor and there's all this interesting looking stuff, but I shouldn't look at it. So we're going to look at the Butsudan. So tonight on the Butsudan, we have a figure up there who we may not have seen before. He's kind of scary looking, actually. His name is Fudo. And you don't usually see him in a Zen ceremony, and really, I wanted him up there because I kind of like him. But he has a particular significance. Fudo, the word Fudo, akala or achala in Sanskrit, means the unmovable. And so he's always pictured standing or sitting on a big rock, unmovable. And he's got kind of a fierce demeanor about his face. And he's surrounded by these sort of wreathed flames. And he carries a sword and a lariat. So if we were looking at this, we might think, oh, what a horrible demon these Buddhists are worshiping today. But as always, when we're looking at an image on the shrine or on the Butsudan, in Zen, we have to understand that we don't have idols or gods that we worship, that these are physical manifestations of characteristics. Fudo I quite like because he really represents the tenacity, the strength, the courage that is required to face what is difficult in our lives, in our practice, to face the things that we are afraid of. Now, the story about Fudo is he's a wisdom king, and his job is to descend into the frightening realms, the hell realms, the hungry ghost realms, to liberate people. The sword that he carries is the sword of wisdom, which cuts off attachments and fixations and desires. And the lariat that he's got, this is kind of a funny thing, is like, it doesn't matter if you want to be liberated, you're coming with me. Right? So it's this real determination to help with tremendous strength. And if you look at his face, he has these two fangs. And one is sort of pointed up. He's like a snaggletooth. He's got one pointed up, and he's got one pointed down. And the one that's pointed up, it reminds me of, if you come on Buddha's birthday, he's got one finger pointed up and one finger pointed down. But with Fudo, the one tooth pointing up is a metaphor for this sort of upward direction, the manifestation of ongoing awakening, that there's no stopping, always becoming more awake, always more wisdom. And the one that's pointing down represents the direction of compassion, taking care of people who are in realms of suffering. They're suffering, so we've got to take care of them. And the final piece about the Fudo character is that he's got this long braid that comes down the side. And in the context of the period that this character comes from, it indicates that he's a servant. And so Fudo, although he's a wisdom king, is the servant of all beings and resides within each of us, is a part of each of us. That fierceness, that courage, that immovability in the face of fear. I got a few notes, so I don't usually sort of work off of notes, but there's so much to talk about. So this ceremony, ulambana as we call it in Buddhism, obon is the Japanese. The word means upside down. And it comes from a story called the Ulambana Sutra, in which one of the Buddha's disciples, I feel like we should have the kids up front here, but we won't do that this time. The Buddha had two primary disciples in his teaching career during his life. Their names were Shariputra and Moggallana. And in Zen, we hear about Shariputra all the time. He's in the Heart Sutra. Oh, Shariputra, form is empty, emptiness is form, right? We hear about him in the Vimalakirti Sutra. He makes frequent appearances. He was the general of the Dharma. He was renowned for his ability to expound the Dharma. If the Buddha wasn't around, Shariputra acted in the stead of the Buddha. And he had sort of a blood brother, a very close friend when they were young, and very close friend in seeking the path to awakening. And early on, before they met the Buddha, they kind of did the thing that always happens in like Scooby-Doo movies or horror movies maybe, where they said, we'll probably find a better teacher quicker if we split up. So you go that way and I'll go this way. And if either of us finds a truly awakened teacher, we'll go and find the other person and bring them. And as it happened, Shariputra found the Buddha first, and making good on his promise, he went and got Moggallana. It said that Shariputra was so sharp that he awakened. He became a realized being within 2 weeks after beginning to practice with the Buddha. It said that Moggallana arrived at awakening in 7 days. Moggallana was known for his supernatural powers. He was foremost in what were called the supernatural powers. Foremost of these was the sort of transcendent sight that Moggallana had. It said that he was able to see across realms, across great distances, into people's hearts and minds, so that when people came before Moggallana and had difficulty, were struggling with something, Moggallana could instantly see what the trouble was, what the source of the trouble was, and what that person needed to do in order to alleviate the trouble. This is all going somewhere. So one day, Moggallana got to wondering what had happened to his mother after she had died. And utilizing his power to see across realms, he began looking through the various realms of existence to see if he could find his mother. And finally, to his horror, he found her in the hungry ghost realm, hanging by her feet upside down. This hungry ghost realm, there's lots of different explanations or descriptions of it. My personal preference, and this is my personal preference, some Buddhists may become very offended, is to really look at these realms of existence as psychological, metaphorical. They are teaching mechanisms. So the upside downness of the hungry ghost realms represents that when we're suffering like this, when we're in this position of insatiable craving, that down is up. When we're looking for love, we seek the things that hurt us the most, and we think, oh, this is really going to be great. Or if we're in position of looking for something that's good for us physically, then we seek and find and take and consume as much as we can of just the right poison that will keep us going in the wrong direction. This is what the ulambana, the upside down, hungry ghost realm, points to. Part of the reason that we make all this noise and we turn on lights before we start this ceremony is that we are offering some attraction to the spirits, to the beings in the hungry ghost realm. We're bringing them here with us tonight. So Moggallana sees his mother there, and he's obviously distraught, but he has significant supernatural powers. And so seeing that she's hungry, reaching for food, I imagine her hanging upside down above this sort of banquet table with these big scoops for hands but no elbows, just out of reach, starving, upside down, reaching for this food, and this great upwelling of compassion arises. And so he conjures up in this hungry ghost realm a bowl of rice for his mother to eat. And she grabs it, hungrily grabs it, and goes to eat it. But as soon as she goes to eat it, it turns into hot coals. And so she burns herself, and she can't eat the food. She drops it. And Moggallana is completely distraught, totally upset, because he can't see what's caused this. He can't see what will alleviate it. He can't see what she needs. And this is totally foreign to him. This is his great power. So, of course, being one of the Buddha's main disciples, he goes to the Buddha because if he can't see it, there is only one person who can. And so he goes to the Buddha and he explains this situation. He explains his vision. The Buddha listens to his story and explains to him that his mother is in the hungry ghost realm because she openly disparaged the Buddha and the Sangha. Is part of it. What's important about this in my mind is that she disparaged this whole endeavor of awakening, this whole practice of working towards greater awareness, greater insight. If we give up on this, this just leads us into a great realm of suffering. If we give up this effort towards awakening, we suffer. The Buddha also said that she rejected causation in her actions. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what we do. I can do what I want, and there won't be any consequences. And the third cause for this, the Buddha said, was that she was very greedy and angry in her lifetime. And so when we are greedy and angry, we end up not just transmigrating after death, but when we think about it, when we express this neediness, this greediness, this anger towards others, we become hungrier and hungrier, needier and needier. Now, the Buddha also explained that the reason Moggallana was still confused, and he didn't know, well, if this is the case, that's one thing, but why can't I see it? Why can't I determine this? Why can't I see the situation? I can see everything else. And the Buddha explained to him that his life is rooted in his mother's actions. He has a blind spot where his mother is concerned. How many of us suffer from the same thing. We have a blind spot where our mother is concerned. The Buddha doesn't say this to lay blame on the mother, but so that we can understand that the way that our parents lived their lives, the way that we live our lives as parents, impacts the children. The perspectives, the actions, the behaviors that we take become normal, become the baseline, become the habit pattern for the next generation. From generation to generation. And this continues, this pattern of behavior, from an inconceivable past to an unforeseeable future. And this just isn't spirituality. This isn't just sort of Eshu making stuff up. We can understand this in science, psychology. When we have children who experience deprivation or neglect, abuse, the incidence of those people becoming neglectors, abusers, is much higher. So, what can we do about it? In Buddhism, the intervention that is recommended is awareness. Very simple. Wake up. If we're not waking up, we just follow this cycle over and over and over again, repeating what has been done to us to others. So, as you've often heard me talk about before, the fundamentally important point is to investigate what we're doing in this moment. As we go about living our lives, we have a choice on how we do that. We can go about it just continuing the cycle without thinking, following our habits, or we can develop this fundamental awareness where we become aware of what we're doing. And this awareness broadens out in all directions. We begin to start to see where this action is coming from, where this habit came from, how it plays out, how it impacts our experience in our lives, and how it's carried forward into the future. This simple activity of awareness. And if we're not aware of what motivates us, what we desire, what we're afraid of, we just stumble forward into the next generation in the dark. So when we think about our ancestors, when we think about our parents and how we were raised, when we think about our children and what they're going to be like, we can spend a lot of time in regret over the past, wishing that things were different. Moggallana probably wished that his mother hadn't done those things and his mother hadn't been like that, so that she wouldn't be suffering. If only she could have known, she wouldn't have ended up in this miserable state. Maybe we think that way about our own ancestors. Or maybe we think we see something coming down the road for ourselves or our own children and wish, if only I could have done this, or if only I could do that, or if only they'll be like this. But Zen practice points to this moment. This moment which arises out of this inconceivable past. This moment out of which arises all things in the unforeseeable future. And it teaches us that it is only in this moment that we're able to act. We're able to act with wisdom and to create transformation. If we just follow the cycle, follow the habit, follow the pattern, nothing changes. There is no transformation. From lifetime to lifetime, we just continue stumbling blindly. So, Moggallana says, "Great, Buddha. Thank you for explaining why I can't see what's going on with my mother. Now, what can I do about it?" The Buddha says, on your own, you can't do anything. You're not powerful enough. And this is saying something because, as I said, Moggallana is renowned for being this incredibly spiritually powerful being. The Buddha says the monks, the community of monks, the Sangha, is coming out of its retreat. And if you want to help your mother, it will require you to obtain the energy, the intention of the whole community. You have to get them behind you. You have to do something to coalesce or bring together the tremendous virtue, the tremendous energy of the Sangha, the community of practice. The Buddha tells him that if he wants to alleviate his mother's suffering, he has to make offerings to the monks. Now, when I first read this, I thought, oh, this is one of those great Buddhist stories that gets wrapped up so that lay people can make big donations to monasteries. And this is sort of where all this stuff about sort of, if you donate so much money and so much stuff, then your ancestors will have a much better rebirth and you'll have no guilt because you've taken care of them. And that's kind of where I went with it at first. But then I thought, wait a minute. Because Moggallana is not a layperson. He's a monk. So this monk, this sort of king of monks, this general of monks, is being told by the Buddha that he has to offer a meal to the Sangha. Well, what's that about? Well, the Buddha's mother, Moggallana's mother, it's said, is in this realm of suffering because she disparaged the Buddha and the Sangha, because she refused to accept this teaching of causation, that your actions have consequences that resound through time. She's rejected this idea of awakening and moving towards it, letting go of delusion and awakening. She's rejected the value of a community which exists to support us in this effort. The remedy is this simple offering that Moggallana is encouraged to make. And so if we look up at the Buddhadan, what we see in the center tray there is a monk's meal. This is very much how we eat on retreat. The first bowl, we have rice. The second bowl, the one with the cover on it, is miso soup. And in the little dish in the front is pickle, pickled daikon radish. Yeah? We've got some fruit, we've got some tea. So this isn't a big fancy offering. This is the offering of one monk to the community. And it's only through the power of this collective community that we create this energy that liberates those who are suffering. I think this is a very powerful metaphor, particularly today, in today's world. It's very difficult to generate significant transformation on our own. And yet, when we make an offering of ourselves, even if it's very humble, even if it's rice and miso soup, that offering supports the practice of the community. And it's my personal, humble belief that there is very little that we can do which is a greater force of transformation in this world than to support a community that is committed to the practice of awakening. So the story is that, of course, Moggallana, hearing this instruction, does as the Buddha instructs, makes an offering to the community of monks, and his mother is indeed liberated from this suffering existence in the hungry ghost realm. And it's said that Moggallana was so happy that he started singing and dancing. Now, this doesn't sound like a big deal, but in those days, a monk was just plain not allowed to sing and dance. Those were off the table. But the Buddha didn't say anything. And so this is where, in Japan, during Obon, there is something called Bon Odori, which is a traditional dance, which is done for Obon. And it's to celebrate the release, the liberation of those beings who are suffering. So, for the ceremony, we all come together to make this offering. We offer light, we offer food, we offer incense, we offer chanting. And most of all, we offer our courage and our hearts, because we take this opportunity to really bring to mind our ancestors. I say this word, but I don't know how connected we are to this word ancestors. To our parents and to our grandparents, to our friends and loved ones who we've lost, who have passed away, who have died. We take this opportunity to remember them, to say their names, to invite them in to our hearts and to our minds and to our community. So this is what we do symbolically in this ceremony. But in the Zen tradition, we use ceremony for a very specific purpose, which is to bind or to connect our community together. We have to take this action, this symbolic action of giving of ourselves to support our community out into the world, not just into our spiritual community, but into the world at large. Giving of ourselves, even if it's just rice, even if it's just something very simple, giving what we can so that others can benefit. So now we're going to do the ritual part of the ceremony. It doesn't take too long. It's not too terrible. We're just going to make the offering. So I encourage you all just to sit, make yourselves comfortable, watch, and just focus, think about the people that you're remembering tonight. Bring them here with us. Okay? Can you stand up? Okay.
Thanks for listening to the Living Zen podcast. If you follow Living Zen through iTunes, I would very much appreciate it if you would take a moment to let me know what you think about it by rating or reviewing the podcast, so that new listeners can also hear what you have to say. Thank you for your time and for your support.